Some people think that realtors are just overpaid door openers, so today we're going to change that. Hi, my name is Marissa and I'm a real estate agent here in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I love making videos about everything home and all things real estate. And today I'm going to teach you how to show like a pro. I built out a list of things that I do before, during, and after every single showing, and looking at this list, it is so much longer than I thought it would be. So this video is going to be split up between before, during, and after a showing. These are all of the things that I would recommend doing before, during, and after showings to make your client's experience top-notch. So let's get into before. Starting off with safety, do not ever meet anyone that you have never met at a showing for the first time. You should be doing a buyer consultation with the buyer, going through all of the steps. That should be in a public place. You could do it at your office, you could do it at a coffee shop, but you should never be meeting someone who you have never met before at a showing. Now, even after you've done the buyer consultation and you feel like you know each other, you should always let someone know where you are. So text your significant other or your parents or your friend the address that you're going to be at, or consider sharing your location. Next, we are going to prep for the appointment. So I always like to print off the spec sheet. This is the detailed document about all of the things in the home, what type of water it has, what's included in the sale, the price, what are the dimensions, everything like that is going to be on this spec sheet. So I personally like to highlight all the important items for my client, which would include like property taxes and the acreage and the square footage and what's included, what's not, things like that. Anything that I want to call out on the spec sheet, I would go ahead and highlight that so that it's really easy for my client to be able to find that information. I also print one off for myself and I fold that one around the other copy so that I know which one is which, and then I give the highlighted copy to my clients. On my copy, I will also sometimes write the appointment time at the top and what type of lockbox it is, and if there's a combination, I'll write that right at the top too, so that I'm not having to dig into my phone and look for the combination when I'm walking up to the house. I'm just like super organized right off the bat, and I have everything in one place where I need it to be. I write down major updates, so if the roof was updated recently, I'll go ahead and write that on my spec sheet as well. Anything I can find through the additional documents on MLS, so I will take a peek at MLS first before we even go on the showing, and I will write down any important details on the spec sheet. And if there's something super alarming, I might send that to my client before we even go on the showing, so that if they want to change their mind about it, then they can before they've driven out there and they're like, okay, yeah, this was not gonna work anyway. So then they would know right up front about anything that would be a deal breaker. If you're showing multiple houses to your client, I would recommend taking a screenshot of the order and the times of all of the properties that you're showing your client, so that they have the order and all the addresses and they know exactly where they need to be at what time. Otherwise, Showing Time has an app. It's called Home by Showing Time, and you can direct your clients to download that app, and then they can see kind of what you're seeing. Depending on the situation, you might want to call the listing agent, especially if it's a hot market. You want to just double check to make sure if they have any offers, especially if you are planning on scheduling a showing a couple days out, or you're waiting until the weekend and it's early in the week. You want to be like, hey, is this going to be an issue, do you think? Like us scheduling a showing out this far, otherwise you might need to get in sooner kind of thing. So you can get a feel for how many offers they currently have in, or if there's anything going on that would be important to know about before you attend the showing. Now, when you get to the property, this is still before because we haven't gone in the house, but when you get to the property, park on the street if possible. This is another safety thing. If you park in the driveway and get parked in, that will prevent you from leaving if there is an emergency. So park on the street when possible. Also, be sure to leave your valuable items in the car. I literally only take my phone, my portfolio, which has the spec sheets in it, and some business cards, and I bring in my keys that also have pepper spray on them. So that is all I bring in. Do not be bringing your purse or your wallet or anything valuable inside with you. That should stay in your car, and your car should be locked. Last thing I would recommend for before is arriving 5 minutes before. You don't need to arrive super far in advance because you're not going to be able to go in really ahead of your scheduled time. So keep that in mind too. If you and your client show up to a house like 15 minutes early, if I know we're going to be early, I try to reschedule and see if we can get in earlier. But if you are sitting in the driveway 15 minutes early, I usually have to wait and talk to my clients for 15 minutes before we go in, because we really want to make sure we stick to our appointment time. We don't want to go in the house and the sellers are still there, or there's another showing happening that is not allowing for overlapping showings, and then we show up and we're all in their space too. So we want to be respectful of everyone's space. So I would recommend showing up 5 minutes early to each showing and then going in really, really close to that scheduled appointment time. Now, when you get to the house and your clients are there, you're there, it's 5 minutes before, you've done everything you needed to do for prep work, you're gonna meet your clients in front of the house and you're gonna go in together. Remind them to be cautious of what they say or do, and that sellers may have cameras and microphones present. Then you can give them the spec sheet. Now, when I'm walking through with my clients, I like to be close enough to where if they had a question, they weren't like, where did she go? They can just yell and ask me the question quick. I don't want to be hovering either though, so it's like a healthy distance. There is a fine line. So I try not to hover and walk right behind my clients or right in front of my clients. It's not like HGTV and it's not like Selling Sunset where, I mean, depending, if you have a luxury listing, you may, but for most listings in Appleton, Wisconsin, for example, I just kind of let the buyers see what they want to see. They generally know if they like the house or they don't. They can ask me questions, and if I don't know the answer, I can follow up with the listing agent and get back to my buyers on the answer. But for the most part, I try to keep a healthy distance away from me and the buyers so that they don't feel smothered and like I'm hovering, but close enough to where if they had a question, they could ask it. Another thing to keep in mind is to stay professional when you are making comments about the house. So I do not like to give my opinion about the design or the decorations or anything really that could be subjective about the house. I like to keep it to the facts, because if I start commenting about like, oh, I really like this kitchen, it doesn't matter if I like the kitchen. It matters if the buyer likes the kitchen or if they don't like the kitchen. If they like, the paint colors, it doesn't really matter what you think. So try to keep your personal opinions inside and keep the professional data being the only thing you really talk about. Another thing you'll want to be cautious of is speaking negotiations while you're in the house. You can remind your client of this before you go into the house as well, and I always remind my buyers at the buyer consultation. But speaking about negotiations and price and tactic within the house, if the sellers do have cameras or microphones placed within, that could take away some of our negotiating power. So I always just tell them that if you want to talk negotiations right after we're done with the showing, you can give me a call while we're in the car. So we kind of wait to say certain things until we're back in the car and we know for sure that there are no cameras around. So that is also a safe bet. Just try to remind your clients that we should not speak about negotiations while we're in the home, and that we should wait until we're in the car to talk about that. And then kind of going along with keeping your personal opinions out of things and just providing the data for your client, you do want to keep an eye out for anything alarming. So if there are any material defects that you can see with your eyes that the seller has not called out on the condition report and that your clients are not aware of, you want to make sure that you are passing along that information to them. Now we've made it to after. So after the showing, there is more work that needs to be done, especially if your client is interested. Obviously, if they're not interested, it's a little bit less work that you have to do after the showing. So first, you are going to lock up the house and leave everything exactly how you found it. If the seller said that they want the lights on after each showing, leave the lights on. If they were all off when you got there and they want all the lights off when you leave, make sure you hit those lights and get every single one. Make sure that the side door, back door, front door, everything is locked up so that the seller's items are secure. And if anything goes wrong at the showing, be sure to promptly let the listing agent know about it. There have been times where I could not get the door to lock and I've had to call the listing agent before I even leave the house. So I would recommend just being upfront and honest about anything that happens. If something breaks at a showing, definitely let them know upfront. Next, you can ask your buyer clients if they have any questions, and if they have questions that you don't know the answer to right off the top of your head, like if they have any offers and you still need to check in with the listing agent and find that out, just take notes and write down their questions and then promptly follow up with them once you get those answers. This is something that I have been trying to put more in effect since Max and I purchased our house, and that is giving the clients some space to think and chat about the house, especially if they are a couple. It is hard enough trying to find a house on your own, and then when you add another person into the mix and they have all of their opinions and wish lists and things they like and don't like, that makes it even trickier. Buying home can be really super emotional, so you want to give the clients some space to think about it. Even if it's a hot market, say, hey, go chat about it on your way home and let me know what you think. Like, that's totally enough time. Like, hot market or not, everyone has time to chat about it on the way home. If they're looking like they're unsure, don't press them for an answer right away. Just say, hey, no worries, think about it on your way home, text me, call me, whatever you're thinking. Now, if they say that they're interested, now is time to call the listing agent. Even if you've called them before, you still want to touch base with them after. Let them know that an offer is coming, keep them updated on how things are going. Even if I'm waiting for my clients to sign documents and it's taking a while, I will just send an update to the listing agent and I'll be like, hey, just waiting on some documents to be signed and it'll be right over. Just to keep them updated, especially if they have multiple offers in hand. Keep them updated on what's going on so that they don't just move forward without your offer. Some of the questions that you are going to want to ask about are binding acceptance. Now, binding acceptance, the way that I explain this to people is kind of like our desired response time. Let's say if binding acceptance is tomorrow, that would be when we would expect to hear back from the seller. If they do decide to counter our offer, they could do that before the binding acceptance date or even after. So just keep that in mind and keep your clients in the loop. Another thing you could touch base with the listing agent on is how they feel and how their seller feels about escalation clauses. If you're thinking about using the escalation clause in your offer, no problem. You can use it anyway, but just an extra tip is to check with the listing agent and the seller and see how they feel about them. Because if they would rather have the highest and best price and they are not fans of escalation clauses at all, it's good to know up front before you submit the offer. So obviously your clients can go in whatever direction they want, but you should be able to advise them on what would be the best path to take. And if you know this information already, that the seller is not a fan of escalation clauses and they're competing against multiple offers, that would be something really good to ask. So trying to put out feelers for what might be a good thing to put in your offer and what might not be a good thing to put in your offer is always a good thing to check in with the listing agent on. Even if they say, hey, I'm not gonna give you any information on that, you at least asked. So that kind of goes along with my next thing I had written down. Anything in particular the seller is looking for. If they have occupancy needs, for example, then just getting feelers for that. And then if they have any other offers in, you will want to check on that as well. And please, please, please do not be that agent who asks about specifics about other offers and what the price is or what contingencies they have. Because for the listing agent, that is super unethical to share information about other people's offers. So just don't do it. Don't encourage it. It's super unprofessional. Don't even ask. One thing you could ask is if it's getting closer to the deadline and you know there's multiple offers, just asking, hey, is there anything we could do to make our offer stronger? That I think is totally acceptable, but being like, hey, what other offers do you have in? Like, do you have any cash offers? Don't be that person. Alrighty, well, I hope after this you feel a little bit better about showing homes and you feel more prepared. So comment below which was your favorite tip, and then be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel in order to see more. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.